Good afternoon to everyone. It looks like we've got really great attendance today for the DrayNow webinar. The first of which we plan to do more for the carriers. So this is a carrier webinar. And again, thank you for participating. So our topic today is really centered around data. We're calling it our DrayNow spot rate data, and how a number and a variety of carriers that currently use DrayNow use our tools to make better business decisions for their companies. The webinar is co-hosted today by myself, Tom Ryan, and on the screen to the left is Artie Tom. And as a quick way of intro, I'll give you a little bit of our background, or my background, and Artie will tell you a little bit about his. So I am responsible for the business development at the company. I'm an industry veteran with over 40 years of intermodal trucking, intermodal rail, ocean shipping, truckload and logistics, with some small as well as some large companies such as CSX Intermodal, Roadlink USA, which was a national intermodal drayage company, American President Lines, Pacer Cartage, which is now part of XPO, and a few others, to say the least. But I've been working with Mike Albert, our CEO and founder, since the inception of DrayNow. And Artie, maybe a quick intro on your part as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Artie Tom. I am the recruitment and engagement specialist here at DrayNow. My role centers around making sure carriers understand how to use the DrayNow app as efficiently as possible so that their businesses can thrive. I help carriers move through the sign-up process, answering questions, running demonstrations, and helping them through their first couple loads with DrayNow. And my background is in customer service. I was a team lead at the Uber Greenlight Hub here in Philadelphia before coming to DrayNow. And much like my role at DrayNow, I focused on breaking down the technology so that new drivers understood how to use it most effectively and answered any questions that arose during the sign-up process. I'll kick it back to you, Tom.
All right, so just as a note, Artie and I have worked together now for a number of years. I guess, almost 2.5 years?
Yeah,
That
2.5,
right?
coming on 3.
So we were really looking forward to doing this today. And so you're going to see a little bit of humor, I think, mixed in with a lot of the facts and figures and data that we're going to talk about, because we want to make this a good time, not only for you, but for ourselves as well. So I would like to refresh everybody's memory about, who DrayNow is and what DrayNow is. So, DrayNow is a state-of-the-art advanced technology marketplace platform. That's the official. But it's been built by industry veterans that have been very intimate with the intermodal first and last mile. And it's been built really exclusively for intermodal trucking, that first and last mile. And we've been operating since 2017. So what do we do? Well, DrayNow's marketplace, the technology connects intermodal shippers, which are what we call IMCs, 3PLs, intermodal marketing companies, and a third-party logistics company that use rail transportation to move their freight, and motor carriers. The most of the listening group today, motor carriers. So true independents, carriers and drivers, not drayage carriers, not your traditional dray carrier that everybody associates with, pulling intermodal containers. And we do that all in a real-time environment. So the DrayNow marketplace platform really provides connectivity to really enhance the dynamic supply-demand pricing via our smart market. We provide real-time visibility through the entire transaction, immediate capture of all the necessary documents, access to thousands of independent carriers. And currently we have about 1,900 trucks in our major domestic intermodal markets, which are Chicago, Atlanta, and Los Angeles. And I think another important part of that is we also give the freedom for the carriers to choose the freight that works best for them. Very unique. So what are we going to speak about today? Well, in one word, data. And data that you can use to make a better decision as you move down the road. So we provide that data for all the participating parties, and they certainly for them to utilize this information to make better decisions. we're committed to providing you that, that technology and the data to help drive efficiency and increase profitability in your business. So why are we both on the webinar today? Well, I'm going to speak for Artie here, but Artie and the operating team works, with you, the carriers, on a day in, day out basis, although I know most of you as well, really to ensure that you are utilizing to the fullest extent the tools that we provide and the power that the DrayNow marketplace through the carrier app delivers to you to make the maximum amount of profit for your business. And on the flip side, I work with the customers. Although again, as I said, I know probably most of you guys on the phone, but I work with the customers for them to best understand how to utilize our platform to improve their efficiencies, particularly in the dispatch and moving their freight timely and with much less effort. So we do work together to meet the needs of both of our customers, and both of our customers are the carrier customer as well as the intermodal shipper, that IMC 3PL customer. And we provide that data and information that's really never been before available in our industry. And I want to keep emphasizing it will improve your bottom line. So we are the provider of the technology. We deliver full transparency and impartiality. So we're just the guy in the middle with the technology that's bringing both parties together. And our technology is equally available to the benefit of both the customer, the shipper, and as well as you, the carriers. So in today's webinar, we're going to focus the rest of the seminar on the data, right? The information, that we have for the carriers. So you look at this next slide. What it says is, meet the spot rate tracker, right? So we, as DrayNow, right, it is the spot market for intermodal trucking. And this tool that we're going to talk about is what we call, obviously, the spot rate tracker. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about it, what it is and what it can do for you. But let's first, I guess, define what is spot freight, because it's really no different than what it is on over the road. It's emergency freight. It's got to, comes up, it's got to move. It's last minute opportunities that come from fall offs from other carriers. Typically, it's non-contractual business, one-off loads, and it's also typically freight that it's tended out, less than 24 hours, up to the last minute. And on the DrayNow marketplace, that's exactly what you see and what I've just described. And we focus this strictly around, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, on the domestic intermodal freight, which is in 53-foot containers. So that could range anywhere from 1 mile to 150 to 250 miles from the key rail yards in Chicago, Los Angeles, and Atlanta. But we take a look at that next slide, and we talk about really how do you use this. So let me explain a little bit about how some of the carriers that we're currently using DrayNow's marketplace, how they're using this information to make better decisions. But keep in mind, this is an introduction. Right? You can always call, and we'll talk a little bit more about it later. So as I mentioned before, it is last minute. It's emergency. It's the fall offs. It's the one-off loads, and that is very typical of the DrayNow marketplace. So this data, this spot market, I'm going to call it trend indicator, in my opinion, gives you a barometer, right, to judge for yourself, make your own decisions. If the load you're looking at, and you've looked at the tracker here previously, and you say, look at the load, and you're starting to consider it, this will give you a sense of, is it priced correctly for the service that the customer is really requesting? But keep in mind, it's all your decision, right? We're just presenting and connecting that the two parties together and presenting you with this data. Again, it's nobody else's decision. It's your decision. You're going to make the determination whether it's fair, priced for the service that you're going to provide. So when spot market prices are moving up, it may be a little bit beneficial to kind of wait a little bit. This is what we see some of our existing carriers doing. They get a sense of where it's going. And again, I'm not sure everybody's on a visual here, but on the left side of this chart, when you go to our website and look under the carrier side, you'll see it. It kind of in 2019 on the left half, it shows you the rate per mile. Again, we publish this on a weekly basis, but certainly you can see the seasonality, and there's always fluctuations depending on seasonality and supply and demand. But over on the right half, you'll notice that we started off the year in January and February in the spot market pretty good. And then, of course, COVID hit, right? And but what you're seeing here is kind of this V-shaped recovery that you probably heard about in the news quite a bit. And we've started to see it climb up. And again, there's always fluctuations, right, and variability. But currently, excuse me, in the last week, the spot market price is about $2.78. Now, let me explain that a little bit further, because this is an indicator, right, of all of our data across all our markets, across all the truck miles that you've driven, from all the railroads that you've pulled from. So,
Tom, I think if I could jump in real quick, I think
sure.
this is an excellent time to ask, is this data tracker unique to DrayNow?
Well, Artie, one answer?
Yeah, give it
Yes.
to me. Excellent.
I'm tough to give you just one question, one answer, right? So I'm going to say that it absolutely is. There is no other. There's other indexes out there, as we all know, in the trucking industry, in the ocean industry. There's also indexes, but there is no other spot rate tracker index, if you will, in the first and last mile of intermodal. This is it. It's DrayNow exclusively.
Excellent. And I've got a follow-up for you. I'm full of questions today.
Of course. You're always full of questions, Artie. Come on.
So how is this data collected?
Well, the data is collected. Let's maybe talk about the technology piece, I guess, if you will. The technology is really, the backbone. And we've got a great technology team that spent a lot of time in building, the buzzwords of today, the artificial intelligence, the algorithms behind the scenes, right? That collect all those miles, those executed loads, finished loads, right? And then, we produce this data from all that real-time information, and that's how we get it.
Excellent.
So really, let's jump into the next slide here on how do the carriers use this spot rate? I started to talk a little bit about that as we were going forward, but it does really give you that barometer to make that decision. And as I mentioned, started to mention, spot prices start to move up. It might make sense if that trend line that you're looking at on that chart is going up, then it might make sense to, to wait, don't grab something that may be posted out there by a shipper within, 2 or 3 or 4 days prior to the appointment date. Let us see where it goes and see if they make some adjustments in that price. So again, the indicator's moving up, just let it sit for a bit. On the flip side, if things have been pretty much steady and flatlined, or you see a flat line on that graph, it might, be well worth grabbing that load, because typically a load on the spot marketplace on DrayNow will move within 4 minutes. So one of the other points I certainly wanted to make is that as you look at our marketplace, and you see 5 loads, or you may say 50 loads, or you may see 100 loads, or, hey, there's occasions you may see none. And if you do, it's because everybody else has grabbed them. So again, stay with it, make your decisions, again, more intelligently based around the data that we've started to provide, with more data coming down the road.
And Tom, you touched on how dynamic the marketplace is. And given how long you've been in the industry, you've had a hand in a lot of different aspects of the business. Where do you see the spot rates going?
Well, Artie, I have been in the business a hell of a long time, right? I don't know if you're giving me a hard time, or you really see that as some value.
All value.
All right. Okay. All right. We get that clear. There's never, look, I don't have a crystal ball, especially what we've been dealing with over the last year. But what I can tell you, we stay right now in general stays very close, and myself as well, with the customer base. So I've had a lot of discussions with domestic customers, the railroads, international customers, ocean carriers, and all indicators point to a very strong demand, even past Christmas and well into the first quarter. And I'll add to that, we got a lot of promising news over the last couple of weeks with the vaccine. So you're talking to some of our customers that deal directly with the retailers. I think the retailers and the consumers, us, have a lot more trust in the economy once we got that news. And there's still a lot of pent up demand. So I think that carries down through the economy. So what I think we're going to see, and again, this is not my opinion, others as well, but we're going to see this demand outstrip the supply, especially on the intermodal side, and probably on the truckload side as well, which would push more to intermodal. So I expect the spot rates to continue to edge up, certainly as we get close to Christmas, absolutely no doubt. But I think even throughout the first quarter, we'll probably see some dips, obviously between Christmas and New Year's, maybe a little bit after the New Year holiday, but then I expect things to start picking back up. The other piece of this is, with the e-commerce, there's a lot of return activity that ends up going back intermodally, right? Returns and people. So we have seen a little bit of shift over the years in the January activity where 5, 6, 7 years ago, January was a dead month in intermodal. We don't expect that from a number of different indicators that I've just talked about.
Excellent.
So let's switch gears a little bit and give me an opportunity to ask you some questions.
I'm ready.
Are you ready?
Yeah, what do you got for me?
So on this slide, again, for those that don't see it, it's the DrayNow carriers, right? My first question to you is, does DrayNow use any of the traditional, what I call draymen that support the intermodal industry today?
That's a great question. In a word, no. So overall, DrayNow works with single owner operators that have their own authority, as well as smaller carriers that are looking for a platform that's dynamic and flexible, which you've touched on.
That's I want to interject just a tad here,
Yeah.
but that's interesting because Mike Albert, the founder and CEO of the company, I mean, that was one of the building blocks of his vision for the company, and one of the things that he saw, back in 2014 when him and his partners started to think about this was, the drayage community really hasn't grown. Drivers shift from company to company, right? So what we really need as an industry to continue that growth, which in normal times is anywhere between 4 to 8% on the intermodal, is really to bring in new incremental capacity, a new model, right, to help support this business. And that's what it's all about. You've just nailed it, nailed it on the head. So we don't use draymen, right? We really rely on those 1,900, on the major markets that I highlighted, those 1,900 trucks, right, to continue to help intermodal grow.
Yeah, absolutely. And
Yep.
I can, to put some more numbers to what you just said, we averaged roughly 1.2 trucks per carrier. So we do not partner with large drayage carriers. Right. Bears repeating.
Right. Well, it does bear repeating. And again, for all the years' experience, as you pointed out, or maybe even I said, one of the things that tells me, and I know for a fact, when someone owns their own business, right? So 1.2 trucks per carrier, typically our carrier, the owner is the driver in most cases, right? And as opposed to taking a dispatch from a traditional drayman, or drayage carrier rather, that owner operator is pretty much limited in his view and his access to, what's behind the curtain. That drayman holds that information, right? And kind of parcels it out. Well, in our model, right, it's very, very different. I mean, there's full transparency, right? We're in a partial technology third party, so to speak, right, that bridges the two. And the independent contractors, I've also seen, and I'm talking about our independent contractors, I've also seen a different level of commitment, right? I mean, they make money, right, because they haul intelligently and they haul freight. So one other quick question, I guess, and then we can move to the next slide. But do you find that new carriers that DrayNow haul more last minute spot freight or freight that's posted out further in advance?
That's another great question. And I really think it depends on the carrier and what they're trying to achieve. So the spot rate tracker is a tool, for example, that allows these carriers to make the most informed decisions on when they request freight. Mm-hmm. And that's a good segue into gross versus net. So when talking with prospective carriers, I always like to focus on, gross income versus net income. And hauling with DrayNow compared to going over the road, you end up netting more because you're burning less fuel. You're spending less time on the road, so less time repairing your truck. And ultimately, you have more time to spend with your family and friends, which is incredibly important. Um, I say it all of the time. You've heard me say it before, Tom, and everyone
Absolutely.
else in the office, I'm sure you know what's coming, but time is money. I really do mean that. You know, it's important to note, and you've touched on this a little bit with the transparency and flexibility, that the carriers that use DrayNow, they're able to see all the most pertinent details about each load up front in the marketplace. So that allows them to set their day or their week up as they see fit. So what am I talking about there? So the big things are the all-in rate for each load, the round trip mileage, the appointment time at the shipper. They're all provided up front. So the goal is to give the carrier as much flexibility or as much information and flexibility so that they can select the freight that works for them. Another bonus that I like to point out in terms of gross first net income is DrayNow pays out weekly. So every week, or carriers can factor. They can use their own factoring companies for a quick pay, and that's a concern that a lot of carriers bring up. They've had delays in their payment from different companies and their overall experience in the industry, and they're relieved to hear that we pay out every week. So ultimately, to be succinct, carriers are able to play the market. They can fill gaps in their schedule. They can use DrayNow as a tool in their tool belt and avoid kind of putting all their eggs in one basket.
All right, I'm not going to let you off the hook here. So I got another question for you. Do you find that because you interact with a lot of these guys almost daily, right? I mean,
Every day, just about.
yeah. So do you find that the carriers that haul the freight off the DrayNow marketplace, do they haul it all the time or just some of the time?
So this speaks to kind of the flexibility that we provide. I think it really depends on the carrier and, again,
Mm-hmm.
what they're trying to achieve. So carriers typically don't put all their eggs in one basket, like I was just mentioning. Some carriers like to fill gaps in their schedule last minute, so the spot rate tracker is crucial. Other carriers like to plan their days and weeks out ahead of time. That being said, there are a group of carriers in each of our market that have converted to using DrayNow full time as the sole source of their revenue.
Very interesting. Very interesting.
Absolutely.
All right, going to the next slide, kind of what's in the current marketplace. We've probably touched on a number of these things already, but the trend right now, as you can see on our spot rate tracker, the trend is up on spot market freight. And that's the general direction that we believe is going to continue on, with some ups and downs here during and between the Christmas and New Year holiday and maybe a little after that following week. But it'll pick back up, in our opinion. And again, I think I've reiterated, not just to reiterate, but all indications from all our customers, the rails and the ocean carriers and the domestic shippers, all point to that. So there are always going to be fluctuations. As I mentioned earlier, just to remember, the vaccine holds a lot of promise. And I think we're going to have a pretty strong quarter for intermodal in general, and certainly for our marketplace, because demand is going to outstrip the supply.
I could jump in real quick and just wanted to say, how much I speak to carriers every day. One thing that consistently impresses me is how resourceful, our carriers are when dealing with fluctuations in the market. The freight needs to move and they get it done, which is really, day after day, it impresses me. I think you would agree.
Well, I've said it earlier, right? I mean, that's the difference between working for a drayage company and having the freedom and to work with your own authority, your own insurance, with the technology and the access to this unique piece of business that DrayNow has provided, right? So moving to the next one, let's talk about what resources do we provide, right? How do we help are the carriers on the phone and viewing this, navigate this data? Well, certainly you're not going to get it in 30 minutes. So you can go to our website at DrayNow.com, select the carrier section, and scroll down, and you will see the chart that I was talking about earlier. You can email Artie at truck@draynow.com. You can sign up for weekly updates because, as I mentioned earlier, we do update that trend line on a weekly basis. And many carriers already have done that. So those on the call will also send you an email out. As we all know and have learned over the years, who is the best communicator of information in the trucking industry? And who's that, Artie? That's our trucking drivers. So once you take a look at this, maybe call us and get some more detail around how to use it. So, and then, the other final way is, as I said, again, I hate to keep repeating, but everybody on the DrayNow team is well-versed in what we're doing and how we do it and the data that we're producing and how it can be used. So please don't ever hesitate to reach out to anybody on in our team. So I think we're getting close to the end here. So have we seen any questions come in, Artie, from the audience?
It looks like we do have a few coming in. So let me see what we've got. All right. So here we go, Tom. I know you're ready.
Yep.
How are you seeing equipment problems in Los Angeles and Chicago affect spot rates?
Well, the answer in one word is yes, but I can never give one word, right? It is affecting.
I need a couple more words. A few.
Right. So, what you're going to find is, the way I saw it happening, when COVID hit, what happened? Shippers and distributors, manufacturers, and on the import side, the ports were deluged and stacked loads upon loads upon loads until the lockdown was basically over, right? And once that happens, it's like dominoes. They fall very quickly, but to bring them back is very difficult, right? And also, they were hesitant. They were hesitant. What's going to happen? So, a lot of the equipment ended up in the central part of the United States and the East Coast, and they had to move it back, and they were slow at moving it back. Right. So we saw a wave, so to speak, kind of move from LA over into Chicago and Atlanta and Memphis is kind of the three major points inland. And then it started to affect, the shortage of equipment there as well, because a lot of the consignees, the customers that were accepting this, they didn't have space for all this. So what do? They hold on to the equipment, right, longer periods of time and don't return it to the rails, which they needed to turn, back to the West Coast or to the East Coast, right? So there is definitely that a huge effect. I don't think it's over. There's still imbalances in the systems around chassis and equipment positioning, but it certainly had a major effect, and I think will continue in the first quarter.
And I think we mentioned it on the last slide, but it's always good to repeat. It's every day. It impresses me to see how carriers are able to think on their feet, make adjustments on the fly, and really, they're incredibly resourceful.
Mm-hmm.
Especially during equipment shortages that we've seen, or any issues that arise. It's something that constantly impresses me. And again, I think you would agree.
Absolutely.
Awesome. All right, we've got another question. So we've got, when should I be checking the app for last minute spot moves? That's a great question.
It is, and I'm going to answer that by saying, as much as you can, the more you can have those opportunities safely to look at it, I say look at it. As I mentioned earlier, our freight flies off this board when it's priced correctly, and within 4 minutes, we're moving 80%, 75, 80% of the freight.
I think you hit the nail on the head. That's one thing that I like to, emphasize up front is, if you're a new carrier, you're signing in, you don't see something that you like right away, the marketplace is dynamic. It will change. So check it often. Doesn't hurt. Yeah, I think you really nailed it.
Yep.
All right, we've got one more question here. Do you think spot rates will continue to rise through the end of 2020?
Absolutely, a resounding yes. And I think it's been I've been consistent all the way through on that question. But I think it's a very important question. There's no doubt why it's been asked again, because we don't have a crystal ball. But again, all those indicators, those discussions, everybody is more than confident that it's going to happen. So, and we certainly know there's a a shortage on the drayage community side, right? So I would expect a lot more activity on the DrayNow marketplace as a result of that as well. Yep. Anything else come? We're getting close on time, but anything else you see popped up, Artie?
That's all we have for questions.
All right.
I think we're good there. Yeah.
Okay. Well, really just not more to wrap it up. Just hit a couple of highlights, if you will. You know, the resources, you know, that we have at DrayNow. I mentioned, you know, we've got the spot rate tracker index. It's updated on a weekly basis. You know, we have a blog, and we want the blog. You know, we are the advocate for the carriers, and we want to be that information channel, if you will, to give you the information about the industry. So check our blog. I mean, constantly. There's a lot of great information out there, and I really would be remiss if I didn't say the other big resource that we've got is, for those that you can see is sitting above me. If not, it's Artie Mall. Artie's got a real passion, as we all do, but he's got a real passion for you guys, the carriers and the drivers out there. So, you know, the technology is it, right? That's what we brought to the industry that lacked that technology. Our technology is in real time. It's producing great information through the data collection piece. And really, as I mentioned, it's impartial. It benefits the carrier and it benefits the customer. And we're here to bring you guys together to make a more efficient and profitable marketplace in the intermodal first and last mile. So with that, I'll say goodbye and thank you very much, but really take us up on this, use it, question us, and we're here to help. We're here to change the industry. And we've started to do that in the last 3 years.